Hi, Kirk here, and you're listening to the Carry Handle Podcast.
Welcome back to the Carry Handle Podcast. My name is Bryce, and with me, as always, is Kevin. Gentlemen, how are we?
I'm here.
So great.
Well, I did say gentlemen, so the last time that we've recorded this 4 times ago, because of
Three
our
times.
computers hating us.
5
No,
times.
I think I would count 4, but I've already lost the plot. We've done this a lot. There's a conspiracy for us not to do this.
Against you.
Us. I think it's a collective. Kirk, how are you?
I'm good. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Washington.
Excellent. So last time we did this, the audio didn't end up working out very well. You were drinking something before, and now you're drinking a bourbon?
Yeah, Henry McKenna 10 years.
Okay. I think when we have people that enjoy a nice whiskey, we need to shine a light on that. We need to share, because I like whiskey quite a bit. Whiskey and cigars. And Kirk, you like cigars too? You are a cigar guy. What do you like? Okay, and I think that's what we got excited about the first time. I like the L40, and I like a Liga Bravada number 9 Lancero, but I can't find those very often, so I got to go Toro if I can, find those. If I can't do that, then Herrera Stellies or stuff like that.
I don't do cigars. I just inhale the smoke like an idiot.
Yeah, and then he's like, man, I don't feel good. I should smoke cigars. I'm like, what's happening, man? He's like, yeah, it's just hard to inhale. And I'm like, what?
Gotta know how to chooch.
I've done it on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, he's like, this is a great cigar. I'm like, are you okay?
I mean, it happens. I've done it.
It does. It absolutely does.
Anyone who says they haven't is a liar.
That's absolutely the truth. So we would like to start out by the host forgetting his plot.
Why am I here?
Yeah, why are you here?
Well, that's a good question. I'm a career firearms industry professional. I've spent the last 5 years of my life working at a Washington-based rifle manufacturer that does a lot of AR parts, bolt gun parts, and silencers. You can kind of fill in the blanks there as to where that was. Kind of in between things right now, and I just got some knowledge that I guess people think can be interesting, so that's why I'm here.
But that was a very concise way of putting that up. That was very neat and tidy.
Yeah, I like that. Very tidy.
Well, I've got to practice it like 4 times now, so here we are.
Well, practice makes perfect, Kurt. Okay.
Make it nice and tight. I like that. That's very good. So we talked about bolt guns last time. We should just lead with that, because I think I have a more developed opinion on what we were talking about the last time, and that was talking about like 6.5 and my apprehension of rechambering one of my my LMT in 6.5 as well. And I think I had gotten wrapped around the idea of like an everyday rifle in terms of like the 50 state legal, air quotes, because that seems to change every day. So I don't know. I mean, that's more of like a thought exercise. But I have been coming around recently to just kind of thinking maybe 6.5 Creedmoor is the move. And I wanted to get your opinion on something like, have you thought of something like that? Is that a concept you would put any validity in?
Yeah, I think for most people, 6.5 is what makes sense, right? Like, the people make the argument of ammo availability, and, we kind of talked about this the first time, but, my litmus test for a cartridge is if I can find it at a Bi-Mart, which is like a local, it's like a food and stuff if you watch Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah, right. Food and stuff.
Right, or like an Academy or something like that.
Yeah. They sell groceries too, like canned food,
right.
like blue jeans and shitty kayaks. Like,
that's cool.
It's really a great place.
It sounds like a redneck Costco. I like it.
It's exactly. You actually need a card to go there. It's a one-time fee of like $5. Shameless plug of Bi-Mart. I fuck heavily with
Bi-Mart.
Nice. Love it.
So like going into that, right? If you got to think of the use case of the rifle, and it's like, okay, I'm building this as a precision tool, so I'm only looking at match grade ammo, right? You can go into any big box store, and in a lot of cases now you'll see more match 6.5 available than 308, and it's like, cool. I can't run M80 ball through my $5,000 bolt gun setup by going with 6.5, but would you really be wanting to do that anyways? That's kind of what I tell people. 6.5, I think, has a lot of inherent properties that make it. There's a reason it's successful, right? Less recoil, it shoots a lot flatter, it's more efficient. That's not to say 308 can't do it, right? Like you can shoot to 1,000 with 308 all day, but 6.5 does it more efficiently.
Right.
And I think even out of shorter barrel lengths, right? Like you do lose some of the terminal ballistics, cutting the velocity on that cartridge down. But with modern bullet technology, it still does it. Like I would hunt all day with an 18-inch 6.5 Creedmoor, depending on the game. I wouldn't necessarily want to go after elk with that, but it could do it, but for like whitetail, blacktail hunting, all day. And then when you get into the precision rifle space, there's probably more slippery bullets out there if you're trying to build like a tailored chassis system. But for like the everyday person at home, 6.5 I think checks most boxes well. Right. And that's not me disbanding 308. I still like 308 and still have the intention to build 308s moving forward. But my default is always going to be kind of 6.5 for that standard length rifle cartridge for most things, for most people.
Right. Very kind of.
I like that.
Fits a lot of niches or a lot of roles anyway.
Yeah.
I like that. So in terms of stretching into past, I guess your grandpappy's Remington 700, what was your catalyst to get into bolt guns outside of ARs? Because I think you're pretty well known to be an AR guy. I would say that's a pretty safe assumption.
Yeah. I mean, you can just do a lot of different stuff with them. Like I didn't really get into building bolt guns until my last job. I worked at a shop that built custom bolt guns. Like I knew my way around them, but it wasn't like something I did. I was more of an AR builder. That's absolutely accurate.
Right.
They're just neat. They fit a use case. They can do different things. With any firearm, right? There's no free lunch, and bolt guns open up a lot of doors that aren't there with the AR platform, and they also close some doors, right?
Right.
But like you can get a open source short action now that can do everything from 223 up to 6.5 PRC, and everything in between, and you can build those at home very easily, which a lot of people don't realize. And that allows you to kind of tinker with stuff and like tailor build a system to whatever you want to do.
Was it the Rimage action or the Rimage barrel profile that was kind of like the catalyst for a more readily accessible like pre-fit?
That was one of them, and that was nice because Remingtons for the longest time were like the most available action, right? So it's Remington 10 and threads, and then you get the barrel nut like the Savages have, so kind of best of both worlds there. Right. I'd say as you get into the more boutique actions, right, it's definitely more of a shouldered prefit game. Like Zermatt prefit's awesome.
Right. You can that's kind of like the staple, though, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. You can get that from like any reputable barrel company. Like I can go get a proof Zermatt prefit right now, and that'll plug and play with a handful of different actions, right? And then on that same node, the Savage small shank, if you want a variable headspace, they can be cross compatible in that regard. You can take a Zermatt barrel and use it with a barrel nut, or you can you can't use a Savage with a shoulder prefit, but you could do it the other way around.
Right. Well, I think I like what has happened recently with bolt guns in terms of I mean even Palmetto coming out with that concept of their own the Bridgeline or whatever the hell it's called, but because I have no opinion on that because I obviously haven't had one. It is more exciting that it is becoming more mainstream to build bolt actions because it felt like for a time that the popularity of that and revolvers, which I mean, not what we're talking about necessarily, but something else in a similar vein that kind of seemed like it was dying off and seems like it's gotten a resurgence because I definitely think, I mean, PRS is a great example of that. I mean, people are using bolt guns to win very effectively. And I mean, there's a time and place for gas guns, obviously, but
they have their own class for a reason, And
right, exactly, right.
I feel like bolt guns are more, it's more involved.
Well, so we don't need to necessarily talk this into the ground because I mean I'm sure there's probably better forms for it, but like quick and dirty, why are you using a bolt and why would you use a gas gun? Just like kind of just broad strokes.
Quick and dirty, yes.
Yeah, so I'll try and keep this brief, right? But with a quality action, right? The action's the heart of the whole thing, and a quality barrel. It's a lot easier, in my experience, to throw together a really accurate bolt rifle than it is to build a gas gun that shoots really well. And I have accurate gas guns, and I've done that, but the amount of like time and effort that goes into that, while it is just slapping parts together, there's a lot more variables that can kind of screw you up. And again, not to say you cannot build an accurate gas guns. There's lots of accurate gas guns that are boringly accurate, but generally that threshold, that bar is raised when you move to a bolt gun. And that's just from a competition perspective. There's also like the hunting use case where it's just lighter, it's a simpler system. So there's that piece of it as well. But again, you can build plenty accurate gas guns. The coyote hunters of this country have been pioneering that for the last many decades since the ARs kind of taken on.
The varmint rifle has turned into a very, I mean, hell, there's a whole class of rifles just for ARs and hunters. There's those varmint rifles. So
yeah.
It's one of those no free lunch situations. You just gotta look at what you want to do. I believe in, unless you're just doing something for fun, right? If you're like building something, have a purpose behind it and make sure what you're building fits that use case. I harp on use case all the time because I do think it is a very important thing for people to get the most out of their equipment. If they have that use case in mind when they're going into it, rather than just kind of throwing some at the wall and hoping it sticks.
Right. Well, I mean, we kind of touched on that when we were talking about 6.5 and being able to find it places. But I mean, I think that is and once again, we may have touched on this, but I mean, that is so underrated when we start talking about like chasing calibers. It's like on a forum online, we can have conversations about what a bullet is and how great it is. But at the end of the day, I still have to buy the bullet. So I'd like to do it for cheaper. And I want to be realistic about where I'm putting those bullets. Like if I'm throwing them at steel, how important is it that I'm shooting 6.5 or a 6.5 PRC? Or like, does it matter at 1,000 yards?
Super
probably
fine-tuned round.
And the precision communities beat this to death, right? But like, there's definitely like a tribal part of rifle shooting that's like chasing group sizes, right? Which we're all guilty of. I enjoy it. If I can print consistent half-inch groups, I'm floored, right?
Oh yeah.
But like the practicality of that is like, it's cool to know the rifle can do that, and it's cool to gauge, how your barrel is shooting at any given time. Yeah. But it's not all there is to it, right?
I think 9-Hole Reviews has done a lot of work to kind of like make it okay to make like practically accurate more practical, or has at least framed it more
in a better
practically. I hate saying that so many times, but instead of group sizes, they've talked about accuracy, but they're also like, okay, like how easy is it to use this cone of fire, which I enjoy. So
yeah,
I like that.
That's a great point to make. People will like scoff at a 2 MOA AR, right? Which is fine.
Yeah.
If you want like more accurate, it's always better. But a 2 MOA AR can do a lot at a lot of distances, right? For like a general purpose rifle. And that's something.
A lot of soldiers have killed a lot of people with 4 MOA guns.
Yeah, exactly, right. And like again, you got to think about it kind of objectively. There, a 10-inch plate at 1,000 yards, which is a crazy target, is 1 MOA roughly.
Right.
So like,
it's at a known distance, and there's so many other variables too. It's like,
if I'm competing and that's how I'm putting bread on the table, I want a consistently quarter-minute gun.
I
do believe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Accurate rifles are definitely the most interesting from my perspective, for the most part, as far as like modern stuff goes. And again, not to dismiss the merit in any of that. Please don't take that way. But it's more so, again, kind of look at going back to use case. Look at what you actually like realistically need the rifle to do. And like, what are you building, to do that? Optics are another great example of that people often misjudge. Everyone's like, oh, I need a 5-25 Hubble telescope on my rifle. And
over magnification.
Yeah. I'm like, have you ever tried to shoot something up close with a 5 power base, base mag? It's not a good time. You're going to be like chasing around. You're just you're either going to find the deer and just have fur in your glass, or, be hunting for it. And that's not the case everywhere. But like Central Washington, where I hunt, that's definitely the case, right? Like,
I hear guys that hunt in Wyoming. I hear guys in Wyoming saying like 8x or 10x max all the time. They just leave it, they don't touch it, but they also know that they've trained with it a lot. And it's like they're not maxed out, or they're not like at 32 power or whatever, something crazy.
Right.
They're backed out.
2 to 10, 2 to 12, like that VX6, the Loophole does that 2 to 12.
Yeah.
It's a great magnification range for a lot of things, right? Like the distances where you need 25 power, you can I'm not going to start a hunting ethics discussion here, but you probably should.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Now, I know there's an argument to be made for, okay, if you were to bump it up, that's just more information and maybe you don't engage that way. But the amount of times that I can even with just like a 3 to 16 that I have, like the amount of times I'm actually on 16 versus like 12 or like 10, I mean, comfortably, it's just, I don't need to be magged out like that far. It's not that big a deal. So, and that's on paper.
Like, yeah, and like PRS, like I want to make a distinction there too, because like PRS is, and this is, don't take this as a jab towards PRS, but it's a game, right? So
yeah,
you're building that use case. 25 power makes sense if you're out poking stuff at 1,300 yards, all day.
Right.
Yeah, you need, that magnification is good to have, but within the frame of like practical rifles or hunting rifles, right? I don't think that much glass is necessary for most people.
I would agree. Yeah. I would. I also think it's easier budget wise. I mean, just what I've seen thus far in my very limited experience buying scopes in the past few years, or well, actually just a couple of years anyway. Past like hunting scopes, is it seems like it's easier to find a more affordable lower end magnification than a higher end, because like it seems like the higher the magnification goes, like the lower end the optic looks. It's like I watch like optic reviews for like Sea-Doos, and he's like, yeah, this is great. Like max magnification is kind of terrible, but if you take it down like 4x back to like what a cheaper scope would have been, it's way better. It's like, well, wait, what?
So it's better to buy a quality cheaper scope than it is to buy a
or more clearly, and maybe have a more realistic expectation of what you're going to use a rifle for.
Well, you're going to notice that glass on a 25 power more than you are on a red dot.
And see, that makes a lot more sense.
A red dot is a 3 power.
Yeah, it's like putting a magnifier on one of those really old Bushnell TR25s or whatever. They just look like crap. Petri dish crap.
But yeah, anyways, not to get into a whole argument or discussion about scope magnification semantics, but like most people, the 3 to 16 ish range, 3 to 12 in there, like you're fine.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I'm not sure your listeners need to hear that, but like if you're running around hunting whitetail with a 5 to 25 in Western Washington, you're going to have a bad time. I can tell you that from experience.
Jesus.
The title of this is the Carry Handle podcast. We just started talking about optics. I don't know if they know what optics are. It's okay. We might be scaring them.
What is an optic? Why do I need it?
There's glass. Why is there glass on my gun?
How did you put glass on a carry handle? Oh, wait, no, I guess you can't do that.
Yeah, you absolutely can. I'm going to be doing that soon. So we talked about practical stuff, and I meant to talk to you about this. I knew last time. I'm kind of glad we get to redo this. We were talking about 223s and bolt guns. Do you have any more? You have any information for us in 223s and bolt guns?
Dude, 223 comp setups are my favorite thing right now.
Tell me more.
It's a really affordable way to scratch the same itch that guys are getting with like these Taylor built like 6 GT or 6 Dasher guns, right? Like super low recoil. Match ammo is pretty affordable for it. You can weigh that gun down and it's just a laser beam, terminally I don't want to push it as far as I'd push a 6.5 Creedmoor PRC, but for like shooting tag class, that's what I'm hoping to do more of this year. Is precision rifle, comps, and that's kind of the angle I'm going to be approaching it from, because again, you can get like a harmonically dead barrel bolted on again an open source action, get it in a chassis, get some weights on it, and the gun doesn't move.
Interesting. So would you say, just real quick, I don't remember, I may have already asked you this last time, but are you like a standard or a more traditional stock or a chassis guy, or is it more just use case?
It's use case.
That's a good question.
I know it's easier to hang weights off of chassis at least.
Yeah, and there's some good like chassis for hunting. Like MDT has that Hunt 26, which is a kick-ass chassis system.
That's a carbon fiber one.
It's like carbon fiber and magnesium, I think is what they use on it.
Hell, their field stock looks pretty solid too.
Field stock's great, but that's kind of getting into the you're chasing that boutique like high buck like Western hunter they're sheep hunter, that's like going way, way deep up in the mountains and every ounce matters, right? For comp use, I think a chassis, the benefits of the chassis are pretty clear. I do like a good Monte Carlo stock, or like more traditional stock, and that's for rifles specifically. Shotguns, I'm pretty strict. I don't like pistol grip shotguns. I just don't.
But, yeah, we agree on that.
Yeah, so
it used to be because of like some tactical doctrine. I'm like, oh, you can't reach the what, and then I just realized I just don't like it, even when they work. Like I've tried the chisel stock on the 1301s, and I still hate it. I can't do it.
I think the chisel's the best approach at it. Like
absolutely,
but
if you're gonna do it, that's the only way. But
like that factory, the Magpul SGA stock, I think does a really good. I'm sorry, the opposite of precision rifles. But like the Magpul SGA stock they do is such a good, like well thought out stock from an ergonomics perspective.
It absolutely is.
I love it. That just a little cheek piece,
Yeah, I mean, even in the 1022, I picked up one of their. It was their 60th anniversary. One of their anniversary guns, and it was their 1022 stock, and it was just, it had that same feel as the SGA or the 700. Their bolt action.
Yeah, the Hunter.
I haven't used that. Do you have any experience? I'm kind of shopping around for stuff, and I've seen their folding chassis. Have you any experience with those?
I fooled around with their chassis. I think the Hunter stock that they do is a really good option. The chassis, again, it scratches the itch if it has the features you like. I'm biased just because of past lives, but I mean, it does the trick, right? If you have a good consistent like stock that you can bolt weights onto is really the way to do it. And whether you pick Magpul, MDT, or Precision, there's a lot of options out there. Just again, kind of attack it from what features do I need out of this? Is there an aftermarket support for like internal weights and stuff that I need? And kind of go from there. But that's a lot of user preference. There's quality chassis, and then there's ones that are probably like less feature rich, and I'm not pointing at anyone specifically, but it could be like less well made. That's not really a thing in that space, but I'm sure it's out there.
Well, so I mean, kind of like, so in a similar vein, people talk about being invested in a certain kind of platform, or like tool guys are like, oh well, like I need to be in, like I'm a Milwaukee guy, which I am, or a DeWalt guy, or a weird guy like a Makita guy. Then like you get invested in a system because there's support and there's a framework you can kind of rely on, or you can grow into. It's kind of hard to do that when you don't know, like if the stock doesn't necessarily have any pedigree or any aftermarket support, like Glocks. It's like find the chassis, the Glock of the chassis world, I guess. Like
and like a lot of people are like doing, they have like tailored solutions. Like you can, like I'll point to like Salmon River Solutions. They're in Idaho that does weights for chassis, right? And the reason,
but there's that support, the aftermarket support.
Yeah, and then they have like tailored weights for like if you want like an internal weight for your Solus, they provide that. But also like thank God for M-Lock. Cool. Most modern chassis that are worth shaking a stick at, right, have M-Lock on it. You can just bolt external weights onto the thing.
Right. That's super cool.
Interesting.
That's really cool. Okay. So let's real quick, if people aren't familiar, we've talked about weights a couple times. When you talk about weights, when I talk about them, I was under the impression people use them because I have not actually competed in PRS. This is me just trying to get into this world, and you're going to have way more knowledge on this. So in terms of weights, I always understood that as adding mass, reducing recoil, but primarily that, I mean, you're chasing balance, right?
There's aspects of both, and I'll prefix this by saying I'm not some like world-class PRS competitor. I've actually never shot an official sanctioned PRS match.
Okay.
Hoping to change that this year, right?
Okay.
Awesome. I have shot matches, but none under that flag. And I would like, the balance is a piece of it, the weight is a piece of it. Weight reduces recoil, there's more weight for that cartridge to have to move on the rifle side of things. And then the other piece of it is like just how the gun settles into a bag. If you're shooting off of a table, like a tripod table with like a game changer on it, right? That heavy gun's going to be a lot less squirrely than some ultralight hunting rifle.
Right.
Well, I mean, and then we can kind of get back into like 223 or something, because you could start lightening the rifle because the cartridge recoils way less.
Yeah.
So that's also super fun.
But your weights also go a lot further, right? Like my 223, built right now is sinfully heavy. I would not want to walk a mile with that thing to, if I had to.
Yeah.
But it has like, again, you can like you squeeze the trigger, you hear the gun go off, and you see the hole on paper. Like the scope does not shift off the target, which is like
That's awesome.
That's grin inducing. I like that.
Yeah, and like when I was first like looking at them, I'm like, yeah, I get why people like those for trainers or whatever. And then I shot one that was like built out. And I'm like, oh, this is really rad. This is
Man, you're kind of making me want like my first bolt gun to be like a 5.56. Maybe that's the move.
Maybe
just make it
should
easy.
be. Yeah, because the ammo's like real cheap for it too.
Well, and it would get me on the range, and I mean that's been a theme I've been Kevin and I did we talk about this on an episode? Was this a thing
About what?
Me being a doer or not being a doer sometimes?
Oh, you tell people to do things and you don't do them yourself.
No. I just meant like I think Kevin at one point had said that I like to theorize and I like to do mental exercises more than I like to do things, and I was like, oh man,
the gun industry is full of that.
Yeah, and I need to be better about that.
He likes to build stuff out and then and then not actually practically take it out to the range and use it a lot. Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, and is that like gonna check the most boxes a 223 bolt gun? Absolutely not. But it has its place, and like if you're just trying to get proficient in like running your rifle, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
I think it'd be a great. I would get a 223 bolt gun.
I think for me, I was talking about with somebody this. Oh my goodness gracious! Just word salad coming out of my face right now. I was talking about this subject with somebody at work today. Actually, I was talking about how realistic ranges around us, because Kevin and I, for listeners that are just tuning in, because you probably came here because Kirk's cooler than we are. We live in Florida, and the parts of Florida that we're in, we can't see more than 300 yards. So my use case, I'm not really concerned about carrying out to like 1,300 yards. I mean, that'd be super cool. I don't know when I'm going to see that.
Western Washington's the same boat, right? Like the most distance
you can
organically see, which is not an environment, hopefully, unless the world ends, you're not gonna have to shoot on, is like down I-5, right? There's a lot of mountains, a lot of trees here. Any direction from my house, you're not getting. I think like 150 yards is the furthest you can see from.
I don't know. I know for me, I have a 200-yard range I can go to that's free, and I think Bryce has one that's like what 800.
1,000.
Oh, it's 1,000 out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where I shot that 6 Creed.
And a 223, like if you get it loaded with like a good heavy bullet, like my go-to load right now is that 77 grain Sierra Match King, the Federal loads, the gold medal match load. Like it's it's going to be a little more wind sensitive, but it can do it.
Have you played with a Razor Core at all?
I have not.
Okay. I heard it was kind of a Mark 262 clone. I knew that people were buying that when Black Hills basically didn't exist during COVID. So I'll try that out. I have some barrels that I want to try out. I've been an AR building crazy man. So now I have a bunch of uppers.
And I mean there's accessible loads that are cheap that they're not the most accurate.
I'm not really chasing. I'm just trying to slap steel like at 1,000.
Yeah, and so like dollar for dollar, I'm actually writing an article on this right now. I'm doing a comparison. AAC does a load with that 75 grain Hornady bullet.
Tell Kevin AAC is fine now.
I mean, like,
is it?
In my experience with that specific load, I've had very good results.
I don't want it to blow up any of my cheap practical guns.
He texted me that so many times because I was talking about how much I wanted to try that ammo, and he was like, no.
I mean, yeah, I'm here nor there. I know there was some, jacket separation issues that people were pointing to, but I haven't seen anything horrific. I would still shoot, that ammo.
I never saw that. I never saw that out of the 77 grain stuff, so I was
and
like really worried about that.
Bullet issue than
that's kind of what I was thinking.
But again, that's not me putting a rubber stamp on any ammo.
Right? No.
For you to make your own decisions. I'm not responsible if your gun blows up. But
I've
had really good luck with that load, and I've never had any functional issues out of it. I'll have a more fleshed out article with like velocities and actual groups, but generally speaking, I mean, it's, again, dollar for dollar, it's half the price of, most big name match ammo, and shoots almost as good. Thus far, I need to test a second lot to just validate what I've seen. Anecdotally, I can say it's held up to my previous experiences with other lots, but without actual data, published data, don't take my word or anybody's word of mouth on most things.
Right.
So in Washington, I mean, you guys are going to. Actually, that's not true. So, in terms of zeroing, how often are you going to re-zero, confirm zero? Just like as a really quick, just kind of aside.
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, anytime you're
I'm
shooting,
gonna ask the hard one real fast.
Yeah,
that's a hard one because you get down this rabbit hole. It's like anytime you change
Yeah.
anything on the system, you should reconfirm your zero, in my opinion. Whether that be ammo type, there's very few ammos that overlap and dope out the exact same for zero.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even just like environmentally, like season to season.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's good, if you're really trying to like be a practitioner of whatever rifle you're running. It's good to shoot in, and this goes for here or anywhere. Our climate's pretty temperate, but like shoot in different seasons. Figure out, certain powders are more temperature sensitive than others, right? Just know what your gun does, and that's why like regular practice I think is super important, because there's a lot of variables that might float up just from weather changes, right? That could affect what you're seeing on paper.
I think
Right.
being a practical rifleman is something, unfortunately, that has fallen by the wayside because people have influencers with night vision and they're like, oh, I have to be tactical Timmy. And then it's like, well, you know what would be really cool is if you were a practical rifleman and you
Practical
treated
Timmy.
this rifle like a screwdriver or something that you take care of and you practice and you like make sure it's, or I mean, I do that.
Well, it's
but,
a
like,
tool.
You take care of your tools. Like you
Oh,
treat
yeah.
it like a tool. Like I mean, it's
And
a
that
weapon,
goes
but like
like
be
the
proficient.
theoretical of everything people do, right? Like that's cool. There's a lot of good information out there to like draw inspiration from. But at the end of the day, with anything, even stuff I say, go out and do the thing and confirm with your own experience.
Yeah, I mean,
Actual rounds on paper experience that's valid as long as you're realistic.
Right.
Is more valuable than anything I can tell you for the most part. There is like a lot of mental fallacies and ego that needs to get out of the way first before you do that. But once you're like accepting of like this is a tool and this is what it does, that's fine. Specifically with like aspect, like in the precision aspect, you see a lot of like, oh, this one rifle shot a 3-shot sub MOA group once on a Wednesday, so now it's a sub MOA rifle, and it's like, no, that's not how that works. You need to like swallow your pride. It's okay if your rifle, like most rifles, aren't truly, honestly, sub MOA over a certain data set, right?
How many people are sub MOA?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like
right.
Hornady in one of their podcasts, they touched on this beautifully. It's all a game of data, right? Like I can crank out sub half-inch 3-shot groups all day. Push that up to a 5-shot group. Push that up to a 10-shot group. Can you repeat
that
it?
Cone gets bigger.
Right.
Yeah. So like a big heavy comp barrel, if I'm like actually metering that for accuracy, I'm gonna run 10-shot groups through the thing, to see what it actually does, right? Featherweight hunting barrel, it's going to heat up. That's not necessarily a fair apples comparison. But again, that goes back to what use case you're building for.
I mean, you can space out the shots. You could try to mess with the heat as best as you can.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying go run, out of your pencil barrel, run a 10-shot group. Again, going back to the use case thing, right? Like a hunting rifle, I'm not going to go run 15 rounds, going after a mule deer or an elk.
I think it's important to like try to reframe how people might see it, because I feel like what happens is they see the group and then in their brain they see the like a rod coming out of the end of the bull or the muzzle, and it's not a rod.
It's an arc.
It's like 1,000 yards, or like one MOA at 1,000 yards and one MOA at 100 yards is not the same size. It's a big ass fucking cone. And it depends on like where you fall inside that cone, like where the bullet might decide it want to go. And then if there's wind or like, I don't know, like it changes.
Yeah. And again, it gets back to just like regular use and like open
understanding
and, like,
your
being
tool.
willing to learn. Yeah. Understanding the tool and being willing to learn. That's going to give you the most valuable data. There's people with a lot of suboptimal rifle systems that can do really great things with them just based on the fact that they know it like the back of their hand. Right.
That's what I think is important, is that yes, these are really cool things, but it's also really cool to know a craft super well and respect it and practice it and try to master it and be a student of it.
Yeah, and everyone
Yeah.
should be in that mindset, right? Like I've been, doing this professionally for a very long time. Just like working around them, not necessarily like a professional, like a competition shooter, but I'm around them all the time. And from a technical aspect, I'm very well versed, but I don't consider myself an expert. And I think anyone who says they're an expert's, a liar for the most part. Like that takes a lifetime to get that knowledge, and like I know that I'm going to die not knowing everything there is to know.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. I think it'd be super boring if I thought I knew everything. How boring would that be?
Well, that's what's great about this
awful.
hobby, because there's like, once you learn all of one, like say you learn all of one thing, which I don't think is 100% possible, but
there's always that other thing to learn about.
Yeah, you get 90% proficient on this one thing. Okay, what's the next thing I need to learn about? I'm still finding stuff that I'm diving into that I'm like pretty green on, and I'm like, wow, this is like, it kind of reignites that fire in my brain of like, I can chase this down now.
I was talking to Kevin about this recently, and in that, like, there's so many exciting things, and my wife actually, because she's recently been showing more and more interest in getting into the hobby, and she's been asking questions here and there, and she's like, I mean, it seems like you're so into guns, and I'm like, that's because guns isn't like just one thing. There's like so many subcultures you can get into, and in a lifetime never see all of them or even know about all of them. And it's so exciting. That's so cool. And then when you know about something kind of niche and you know somebody else knows, it's kind of fun when you see each other and go, hey, I know that too.
Yeah, and it's again, it comes down for a lot of people. It's an ego thing, because for some reason, I mean, this attracts a certain type of person who wants to be the guy. Everyone wants to be, badass door kicker. I know everything about everything, and like most people aren't that guy. And like, there's practitioners in certain sections of that, right? That are
right.
Good knowledge resources, and definitely pull from them. But again, like, going out and actually doing the thing, taking classes, like that's gonna take you a lot further than just sitting on YouTube all day.
And just being realistic,
Yeah, 100%. And like, there's a lot of good information out there on YouTube and stuff, but like, take what you gather and then go confirm or figure out how that works for you.
Right.
Because there's plenty of like peers that I respect. They'll say something, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go try this now, and like, I'll learn something new. Even like people like, I've had people that were very green to it, right? It was just a fresh set of eyes. I'm talking them through something, and they're like, well, have you ever thought about doing it this way? And I'm like, oh, I have not. That's badass that you just like, through your fresh eyes were able to give me this new perspective that I just had been, moved on past, just from, I did it a certain way and didn't give it much thought after that.
Well, people get complacent, in their hobbies and stuff, and sometimes having fresh eyes opens up that complacency to see different ways of doing something.
Yeah, so that's my big thing, is like, if I could give like one piece of advice to anybody who's, either pursuing this professionally or just as a hobbyist, is like, always have the student mindset, because it is constantly evolving. The doctrine that was taught 20 years ago is vastly different, I shouldn't say vastly different, but discernibly different than what's taught now. And that's because technology is changing, equipment's changing. The amount of data that's at our fingertips is growing by the day. So just like, always be hungry for that next thing. And if you have that passion in you and you can chase that down, that's a really awesome thing, and you need to take full advantage of that.
Yeah.
I think continued ignorance is laziness. And I have to stipulate continued, as in like, you realize you don't know a thing, and then you do put no effort into trying to rectify that. That is complacency.
Or even entertaining the discussion, like, right? Like, I'm never gonna, if someone comes up to me and like, well, you ever thought about it this way? I'm not gonna immediately dismiss that because I've been doing it a certain way for so many years.
Right.
Because again, and I'm beating this horse to death right now, but I think it's important. I am constantly learning things. Everyone in this space is constantly learning things. And the minute you get complacent in that or think you know everything is the minute you stop growing as an individual.
Right.
And that can be applied to anything in life, really.
Yeah, you have to have a continuous open mind to learn.
So sorry for the peace and love rant there, but
I think
that's what we're here for. I love it.
I've been trying to push like being practical and being intentional and in I guess the thinking. Travis Haley said that. Somebody said that was like, we're trying to make thinking or shooters think, or thinking shooters or something, like more intelligent, more.
Oh God, not the
rounded
intelligent
people.
shooters. No.
Well, I mean, I guess somebody, instead of just like I pull trigger, it's like gun go bang. It's like, okay, but yeah, so more dynamic thought into it than just those on Call of Duty.
Yeah, and it's on both sides of the fence. Like on my side of the
Yeah.
world, right? Like I'm just a guy. I wasn't in the military. I didn't do any of that stuff. I'm not the guy to go to for tactics. Like I'm very,
Right.
very, very
Right.
clear about that. I go to people for that who are more experienced than I am. And on the flip side of the coin, you have people that are like career trigger pullers, and they like don't have the slightest inclination of how to build a reliable rifle.
Right. Yep.
And that's okay. That's why we're all here to support each other, right? And generally speaking, there's like a really good information source and community around that. There's lots of really like solid schools spread throughout the country, or ones that are a reasonable travel distance for most people.
I've learned from guys that weren't gun guys. Like my
Right.
dad is famously not a gun guy. He was an agent. He was in a law enforcement capacity, but he always like he would always tell me like I mean, I know how to use it. I know what it is, but it's like a seatbelt. I'd rather not have to use it, but I know how to. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
100%.
fair
Right.
enough.
I'd say an airbag. More, we were talking about
Yeah,
that.
better.
Always wear your
yeah.
seatbelt. Always wear a seatbelt.
Yeah, that. Sorry.
Seatbelts save lives
Yeah.
sometimes.
There was a car analogy. It was something like that. I'm sure I butchered it. My dad's way more. He's a lot.
Yeah,
I think it was
none of this
airbags.
is to say like, and I know I preach on use case and everything a lot. I want to also get
It
this.
may have come up.
Yeah, it came in, but like it's okay to do stuff because it's fun too. I do lots of stuff. Just
Yeah,
'cause it's fun.
absolutely.
I have a whole. I don't like AKs from a practical perspective. I like to study them because they are like a common tool.
Right.
But like to tell you the truth, the reason I'm into a lot of that stuff is just because it's fun and neat, and I think there's a lot of historical significance there, and you find your note as to why you get interested in things, and if it doesn't have a perfect practical use for you, that's okay. You don't need to shoehorn it into whatever use case you're trying to make. If you just have a gun because it's tight and you like it, like cool. I've built plenty of those.
I wanted to buy that new Keltec PR 5, the 5.7 stripper clip handgun.
The Mauser 5.7.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I want that, except I probably won't ever shoot it. I kind of just want it to buy a bunch of like dummy ammo and then just play with it.
People love to shit on Keltec, but I guarantee you everyone in their
cool
corporate office is having a fucking great time. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
There's no way they're not. And they do make some products that are,
I like
in their lane very good.
It's some of it's so goofy. Like I just like it. It's very Florida. Living here, it's like, yeah, this tracks. Honestly, it's kind of a vibe. I'm here for it.
I would much rather see more Keltecs in the world than more people that are just copy pasting the same formula for ARs.
Oh my god! Or at the very least, maybe get like people like stuffing things to throw something in the mix that makes it a little bit more silly. I mean, I like that kind of stuff. It's so exciting,
and you learn a lot through that shit too. Because you might be throwing a lot of stuff at the wall that's a dud, but for certain use cases, a dud, I'll say. But you might get some cool technology out of that can be applied to other things that are for a more serious use case. And this is not a dig on Keltec. Please don't take this that way.
Right.
But we can make it more AK based. I mean, they had like the developmental from like what the Type 1 to the Type 2 or whatever the heck the jump was. Like the developmental version of like that prototype rifle, they had like all those like the guys building the rifles. Like it was like a ported barrel, crazy handguard. Like you got a lot of really cool ideas. You got a kind of a lineage of it. You still got like the scalloped out handguard, but like there was an inspiration for it, which is kind of interesting. So,
and it's just like, and this applies to anything in life, right? If you're doing nothing, you're doing nothing. But if you're making a wrong decision, you're going to learn from that wrong decision, and you can adjust moving forward, right?
Yeah, you got to throw stuff at the wall. It's, I mean, on some level, that's kind of what it is.
And again, it's like, that's way more interesting to me, like seeing new ways to skin the cat than just another AR. They again checks all the core boxes. And
I was excited for that.
That's not me dismissing ARs at all.
Oh no.
There's definitely a rabbit hole there, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do a lot of things. But as an enthusiast and as a shooter, right? Like it's just I love seeing cool shit that's outside the box.
Right.
And I think there's this like weird dogmatic belief that everything needs to be some crazy, like I would go fight World War III with this.
Yeah.
I would be the Doom Marine going into hell with this rifle or whatever pistol, whatever.
Doom guy.
And like that doesn't need to be the case always. Again, it's okay to have things that are fun, and like the rimfire market's full of that. That's a good example.
Oh yeah.
None of those people that preach that shit can look at me with a straight face for the most part and tell me they don't own a 22.
Right.
That's actually a pretty good rationale for that. I like that. Because I mean, as much as people want to talk to me about using a 22 as a trainer, I'm like, I think it's just fun, man.
It's just fun. I mean, like
you're allowed to just have fun. It's okay.
I get it for some of the things, but at the end of the day, if I'm training, I'd rather do it with the thing I'm going to be using.
Right.
You're not going to develop any training scars doing that.
Well, so I was talking actually to a mutual friend, Luke of TFB and TTAP. But he has a different title now too. But I was talking to him about the Ace virtual shooting, and I told him initially that I had purchased it because my son was born, and I was at home on paternity leave with my wife, and I had no way of shooting because obviously it's, I don't know, like if you know this, but kids are, a little bit of effort. And they take up some time, and sometimes I cry and don't let you sleep. So
Shame on you.
Have time to go out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but I wanted to be able to pull triggers, and I was like, okay, honey, can I like go to the virtual range? This is like, okay, cool. It's probably not a good idea for you to be handling firearms anyway when you haven't slept in like 72 hours. But it's like, yeah, it's probably a fair point. So
nice.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, and there's lots of good, and going back to the training thing, there's lots of like that stuff's valuable. Dry fire is invaluable, I think.
Right.
People there was a discernible shift in my shooting ability, especially with handguns, when I went from no dry fire practice to dry fire practice. There is a time and place for that stuff. And same with fire stuff. Yeah, there is a time and a place, but
Jesus Christ,
let me go back to something I said earlier. I don't think a 22 trainer is a direct replacement for running the actual, item that you're going to be using for whatever use case.
And that's kind of what I was talking about with the Ace. Is I think I've even talked to Kevin about this, but it was surprising when I went back to live fire. I went into that knowing pressing a trigger in VR is not a gun. Obviously, there's no recoil. There's a lot of things you're not using. But what I will tell you is it was great for transitions because you got to put your eyes where things are, and it's like a weighted gun, so that's cool.
But there's so many cool things. Mantis is doing so much cool stuff.
Yeah,
with, auto reset triggers and it's pretty.
That
neat.
AR one's really cool.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I think it's a very good instructional tool.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So I'm pretty big on dry fire. Kevin can attest to this.
Well, wait, you're big on dry fire? No,
I am.
You don't dry fire.
Targets all over my
You don't
house.
dry fire at all.
My parents walked in and they're like, "Why are there targets on the wall?" And I'm like, "That is for a separate thing." My wife is very patient with me. We like her a lot.
We love Bryce's wife. I don't know Bryce's wife, but
she puts up with me.
Love the energy.
We can love her and like her.
Yes, she's quite awesome. Big fan. She does our intro too, so we have to like her.
Love that. Love a supportive spouse.
Yes, she's awesome. So it was. I guess where I was going with that in the dry fire vein is I'm really big on that, and I like the idea of what the Ace brought. But I had to go in with a realistic expectation because a lot of the conversation I've seen with those, even with Mantis or anything like that, is oh, this is a replacement. And it's whoa, no, this is an aid. This will help you. It's drills, dude.
Force multiplier.
Yeah.
This
is another tool. This is not, it's not the same thing at all.
I mean, it's better that there is no replacement for the real thing.
Absolutely. And I would even argue that it's hard to replace dry fire with a lot of stuff too. I mean, dry fire is pressing the trigger on the actual gun. I mean, now granted, I also try to practice with weighted magazines because I also think that's a big factor. Like getting a heavy gun, like a realistic weight, is kind of important.
Right.
Especially
But
for reloads, like practicing
right.
reloads.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you try to if you go from practicing reloads with empty mags and then you put a real mag in, either you've thrown the magazine across the floor because you weren't expecting the weight, or like you don't seat it right and it just dumps out of the gun and you're like,
Yep.
fuck.
Yep.
And that's where like there's like an ecosystem that I think, again, like going back to being a practitioner of like weapons craft, right? Like you need to do all the things. And like it takes time, but like go take a class with the rifle you're gonna grab when red parachutes are coming out of the sky, or Doom guys out there. There's portals opening up from UAC all over the place.
Hey! UAC is a reputable company, sir. I'll have you know.
The shareholders have never been happier.
They have done marvels for science and
Argent Energy. That's the future.
And open portals to hell. But that's neither here nor there.
You know what I mean? Like, so like there's a life moment for me where I was fortunate enough to be able to go take a urban rifle class at Thunder Ranch, right? And there was this couple there, and they were running these rifles, and then they started having issues. And at the time, I was working for Blank Company, and I was like, okay, I'm the AR guy here. So I walk over, and they're like, oh yeah, we have these nice rifles at home. We built these ones as trainers with like gun show Chinese parts, and they're getting traffic problems now. I'm like, you spent all this money to come here, and you didn't.
And then you bring the crappiest gun.
So and it was a learning moment for them. I'm not gonna like dog on them for it. Like I get the thought they had. Like
I understand,
conceptualize that, but like don't do that.
Yeah, do not do that. Just because we understand does not mean we approve.
Like if you want a dedicated training rifle, build an exact like clone of the rifle you're
one for one.
Still run the main rifle. Like you need to make sure that runs good. But like if you want one that you can just like run the piss out of and not have to worry about parts wear on your go-to, like just
I think
get an identity.
I have the one thing touching on that I would say is I've had a hard time being a gun guy and a practitioner. Because it's hard to cut down the middle, because when you're being a practitioner and you're practicing to be a practical rifleman, I'm not talking about wearing a plate carrier. I'm talking about picking up a rifle and a magazine and being very proficient with a rifle when you need to be. So like whether it be hunting game, protecting your family, doing whatever the fuck, putting bullets where they need to be very efficiently, right? So like I think that is super cool and it's really cool, but I'm also like a really big gun guy. So I like tinkering with guns. So I have to like be very conscious about understanding like these are really cool and fun, but like I need to have one that's a tool more than it's cool.
Is this my daily driver or is this a race car?
Exactly.
Right.
Is this the Miata that I've turbocharged and probably chipped to hell?
Or is it, I don't want to drive that to work every day,
Yeah.
And that's like, in the handgun space is plagued with this because everyone wants to be different. But I'm like, if you're not sure what to get and you just want something reliable that's going to work, get a Glock. Like, it's just, I hate to be that guy. I hate to be
everybody.
That guy.
They're proven. They're proven.
I feel like people are always looking for this niche thing they can get into because it's like part of their personality. And I'm like, no, me having a fucking DeWalt drill in my garage is not part of my personality. Like, it's a tool for a use case.
Like, ooh, look at my fancy, expensive handgun. It's like,
or they just get something weird, and I'm like, that just doesn't like. It's just inherently less.
I have been my first handgun I bought was an FN9S or long slide because I was like, yeah, Glock 34s are probably cool, but everybody has a Glock 30 or everybody has a Glock, and then I ended up buying a Glock anyway, and then I bought so I have almost anything like in America mainstream, like relatively similar, not anything. Like I'm not saying I have like all these guns. I'm just saying I have a decent selection of different kinds. And that's because I was like, oh, well, I'm trying to do anything to not carry the Glock. And I'm just going to buy a Glock because like you apparently can't buy a fucking Glock 17 Gen 5 MOS anymore, which is the worst travesty known to man. But apparently the 47 is pretty cool. So I'm going to buy one of those and just be an adult and get rid of like all of this other crap because it's just a waste of time.
And here I am. I bought a Glock 19 as my first gun. And
but this fucking guy, he fucking convinces me to get an M&P compact. I have been fighting this for years. I have an M&P 35. Like
Gen 2.
Okay, that I was
It's
Gen 1. I was gonna say brutal, but the Gen 2's all right.
No.
It took me a while to convince him too.
I have a 1.0. I have a 1.0. It was fine. It's very cool. I like it, but I never carried it because no. And the 2.0s, I shot his like when they changed the texture, but right before they made the core basic, like all of them red dot capable, and I liked it enough,
Just
but not
enough
enough
to get caught into buying one.
Yeah, and then I almost bought a Glock 49 or a Glock 47 because they had the Battlefield. Yeah, so because I didn't realize that Glock had like batch imports of like when they do like the OD or their green frames and their FDE frames. I almost bought a Battlefield, but he was like, "No, what about the M&P?" And I fucking bought the M&P.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's
yes,
other
there is.
There's other good pistols out there. I'm not trying to be the guy that's like only all guns should be fucking Glocks. Like that's not me at all.
Well, here's the funniest part. Here's the funniest part of the story.
Kinda should.
I sold my M&P like right after he bought his.
This fucking asshole. That's the biggest fucking. I mean, honestly, I have cursed so much more in this part of this story. I'm still upset about that. I was like, because like the day I think I signed the form and I showed him the picture of the box when I was going back to my house. And I was like, I'm so excited. We can film a video together next time you come and visit. And he was like, so funny story.
That's so funny.
The day I come home with mine.
He's a monster. Interesting story.
And again, I need to harp on this. Like it's okay to have other pistols, but again, if you're unsure, from my perspective, if you're unsure, that's an easy button for you. Like I have other guns, and there's other guns I trust. Like my USP, I would pick up in a heartbeat if I had to.
No, we are pro USP. I have a
Fire M9A2 that I don't shut up about. I love that. That's like a great.
Ooh, the other M9.
Yeah, yes. Dude. Like. I could talk about that for a minute.
Class. I like this. Pyramid sights?
Yeah, pyramid sights. They fucking work. Like it's like it's a weird gun. Like I'm not gonna go tell some dude who's like some dude or chick who's like getting into it for the first time. Like, yeah, you need to buy a Star M9A2 because I have mine and I really like it.
Well, tell him the Austrian way about barleycorn sights, and they won't shut up about it.
Dude, like, and people pick that thing up and they're like, what the fuck Stargate pistol is this? And I'm like, just shoot it. It's got a really low bore axis. It shoots great. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now.
I want the 357 SIG version because that's the only version of that caliber that will, or any gun that actually I've shot in that caliber that I don't hate. And I like that caliber because it's a necked pistol cartridge, and that's fun.
You've shot a Glock 31.
Yeah, that's why I don't own a Glock 31 because it's fucking terrible.
Glock learned from their mistakes on the Gen 5. Like them and HK like acknowledge the thing that nobody would acknowledge about 40 cals, which is they just need to be a slightly larger frame and slide size.
Yep.
So like
it's like a short action or it's like the 308 in the FAL. It's like barely contained.
Or like short mags, like
yeah, exactly. I almost said that, but then I was like, ooh, actually,
I own the Glock 31 out of spite.
He bought that because he knew I wanted it.
And then Bryce actually shot it. He's like, ew.
I did, and I hated it.
He's like, ew.
So I do feel slightly better about that.
I'm a big 10 mil guy, and I love 10 mil because like 10 mil guns generally the frames are built for that high pressure cartridge.
Unless
you're going back to like, if you're just unsure what to get, just get a 9 mil. It's fine. Like it's proven, it works. There's plenty of support for it.
Yeah.
Like again, don't be different for the sake of being different.
Yeah. I think you should be a little bit more established in shooting before you really care about what gun it is. Otherwise, it's like, here, get a reliable one, and then press a trigger, and then get the bullets to go where you generally need them to go, and then how about you worry about that?
I mean, that's what I did. I bought a Glock 19, and I shot it until it Stratner went out on it.
Yeah, and then he got a Glock 22, and then shot that until the slide cracked.
Sold it back to the pawn shop.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's worse than it was a Gen 2. It had a skull backplate. I think it was color filled.
Christ.
It absolutely had a body on it. There is no way my man was not walking around with somebody else's heater.
Well, and the other thing here is too, you put the skull plate on that, Kevin?
No.
Okay. No, well, I mean, I'm not gonna fault anybody. I had a Mullen Labe fucking skull or plate on my Glock 20 for a while, and I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah, but that does fit the gun.
It does fit the gun. It does fit the gun. Like Glock 29 with a Punisher skull on the back.
Yeah,
Like,
baby.
Yeah.
that fucking thing.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, another thing with handguns, talking about frame sizes and everything, like if you want your handgun to live a long, happy life, this goes for everything. This is an important thing to discuss, I think. We talked about
Everybody
this.
lean in here.
Everyone lean in here.
All right, I'm leaned in.
Change your recoil spring.
Change your recoil
The
spring.
recoil
That
spring
is the
needs to be
quickest
changed.
way to make a reliable handgun.
So what you're
not
telling me is you listen to Ben Steger talk about how he goes through like 52,000 rounds on the same recoil spring and that doesn't give you like autism or something?
I mean, like, if it works for him, cool. As someone who's like worked a long time on a range with a rental counter, I can tell you that there is a discernible difference in the happy lifetime of a gun that has had the springs changed and one that has not.
Yep. Oh, I have worked not as long, mind you, but I had a limited time in a range, and I can mirror that, especially in like full auto guns. Obviously, that's a very much accelerated firing schedule, and anybody that's worked in a range knows that full auto guns are always full auto, and it's usually a full magazine, and it's just dumped, and then they get thrown on a wall.
Yeah, and
so,
and that's where a lot of shout out to the men and women in uniform, right? But just because the military had a bad time with the M9s doesn't mean that M9s are bad, and that's I'm probably going to get flack for this, but I don't give a shit. Like you taking a handgun and running it well past its like scheduled maintenance cycles is going to cause it to break. I've seen every make model of handgun break. There was one gun that would like not die without touching it, and it was a USP-45.
I would also argue, aren't they shooting like 124 grain like plus P, like NATO stuff all the time?
That's fine. That's fine. Just change your recoil spring out.
But they're not doing that.
Yeah, correct. And that's like, okay, my locking block is having problems. Like, yeah, of course it is.
Why would you be eating slides? What's happening?
It's like, oh, I ran my car without oil and then it fucking seized up. Must be a piece of shit. It's like, no, you need to do scheduled maintenance.
I was talking about this at work the other day, and because Kevin knows I'm not great because I just don't think about stuff. It's not because I think it's cool to have dirty stuff. I'm not that pretentious. It's just I don't think about it. And the only reason I would think about it is if the gun doesn't do the thing I want it to do. And I'm like, that sucks.
Can I soapbox here for a second?
Here it comes.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Not cleaning your rifle or pistol is not a flex. Like, it's cool that the gun
I just said that.
Thank you.
I just said that.
Thank you, Kirk.
No.
Say it again.
I needed to like reiterate.
Oh, okay.
Reiterate
I was like, wait,
again
what?
for Bryce.
It's not a flex. Like
a flex.
People on the internet might think you're cool. That doesn't matter. Like if you pick up your gun and it doesn't work, that's very not cool, and that could very much so get you killed. So like,
that's not your problem.
Like I've ran ARs thousands of rounds without cleaning. They can do it. I know they can do it. Is that something I'm going to do to my personal equipment, especially if it's like a life-saving tool? Fuck no.
Preach, bro. Preach.
Listen, I knew I was going to get fucking roasted here, but I was still going to be honest. I was just going to say that I'm not malicious about it, but like I usually don't think about it, and then I'm like, oh, hey.
The last time he's cleaned his rifle, Kurt.
No, and I mean that's fine. Like there's a window of acceptance there, but like if you're running like
he's outside that
rounds
window
through your AR to where like you're getting the forward assisted in the battery every round, like probably clean the thing, man. Like it's.
I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Why isn't this working? And I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, so like
I had to use wasp spray once because I didn't have lube and it was just so caked. I was like, well, this will work because there is like this
wasp
is a really
spray.
weird thing.
I'm gonna make sure, like for the bees.
Yeah.
Yep. So there is a lubricating factor in there. So if a gun's being weird, you can use that as like a. Nobody else tried. I thought this was like a thing.
Why would you do that? I'm sorry.
It did work.
Because he doesn't clean anything, Kirk.
Why would you do that to your health? Like that's gonna vaporize.
That's it.
What?
All the chemicals vaporize his house.
Like go to the range prepared, but did you have a car there?
Yeah.
Does your car have a dipstick?
No, it didn't.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
The oil from the car.
There's your emergency lube bottle right there, and that's like,
we were 10 years ago. What do you want from me?
You learned. We've moved past this. You're okay now. Again, I'm not going to beat you to death.
That's true. Now, the worst, I think the most, that actually might be the most egregious story. But I did also have an instance in class, or actually at the end of class, thank God. I had my gun not locking. It was a 1911. It was a 9mm operator, and it wasn't locking open. And I was like, that's weird. I'm getting a lot of clicks, and I just put in a new rotation about Wilson Combat magazines, because I'm kind of anal about magazines. So like I try to be pretty on top of, like, I keep track of like how often I use them. Like I'm pretty anal about that.
I mean, it's good. Magazines aren't the engine, but they're the transmission. They're important.
I very much like, and I like magazines. So I just updated my magazines because I have training magazines, I have class magazines, and I have carry magazines for like guns I'm serious about. And then guns like I'm serious about, I also have 2 of. But that's because guns get hot and I'm impatient. So I was shooting in class, and then like at the end we were all fucking around on steel like 50 yards, and we were doing drills, and like it wasn't locking open, and I finally got pissed off. I went back to the table, was unloading, and was gonna put my carry ammo in, and then I looked inside the gun and realized I didn't see any silver, which was weird because like normally you can see metal reflecting, because that gun had like 10,000 or so rounds on it, so it's like used. I was like, normally I could see brass. That's weird. Locked it open, realized I hadn't looked at the gun in like a year. And then what had happened is, if you're familiar with my listeners, if you're familiar with the 1911, there's something on the slide stop called a lobe. And it's what actually the magazine pushes up on to lock the slide open. I had a carbon deposit that went from the ejector all the way to the feed ramp on the slide, that had almost fused to the frame, but what had made it so that there was no space for the slide lock to go. I had locked it in place with carbon, and I was like, "Huh, that's strange."
What a flex.
No. My gun stopped working. I had to carry a different gun because it didn't work.
Case in point, and again, it's not to say like don't push your equipment to the limits. Like, absolutely do that, but just make sure, like, I'm not going to go take 4 3-day pistol courses and then throw that same handgun on my belt without like taking it apart.
I did bring a separate gun though, just for the record. I did have another gun for that reason.
Saying like white glove, clean everything, like that's another thing from the military. A lot of people pick up is like, oh, there can't be any carbon. Like none of my ARs, for example, are ever perfectly clean that I shoot. They never are. I don't give them that much attention.
You just gotta clean them enough to make sure they're not like crusty.
Yes. Well, you got to make sure they're reliable, and there's definitely like there's a fine line there between that. Like there's like a field maintenance level, and then like neglect.
Right.
I would know nothing about that.
Well, I mean, not about cleaning,
I will say recently Kevin's been on me more, and now my guns are dirty. They're not filthy. They're not caked. Like I wipe off excessive carbon on the bolt.
Wow.
And sometimes I'll put oil in the vent holes.
Oh my
God.
Sometimes
I wipe
Kurt,
off.
you have no idea. This
the
is
sides with like where the carbon's like leaking through.
No, 100%. There's such thing as overdoing it too. Like people, like the bolt tail. Everyone gets so hung up on the bolt. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. And like that's exactly it. People will get like these abrasive tools and like scrape the finish off. And I'm like, you realize when you're doing that, you're making your gun less gas efficient. Like you don't need to, like, as long as it's not a
I think I've told somebody else that. I don't know who has been told that. Weird. Kevin, any ideas?
None. Actually. No.
Huh.
And like that's something again.
Continue, Kirk.
It's a direct result of from where I stand. AA people just being like, I need to get everything spotless, which I was guilty of that for a point in time. But then again, tribally, you see a lot of that from just military doctrine, right?
Right.
Which I get there's a reason they do that, attention to detail, all that fun stuff, and just making like, giving the lowest common denominator the most freedom isn't always the best thing. And I'm not saying that about the military generally, but all walks of life,
Right.
So, yeah, like I get why that's a thing, but like you as a person, if you're like competent and like know how to like be an adult and take care of your things, you don't need to get it that clean.
Well, it's I think along the same veins as making your bed. It's like, I mean, you should probably just do that. It's
And I don't make
probably
my bed perfect. I'm not like doing it like show making my bed,
But
but you know,
you're making
well,
it
my
not.
sheets are in the corner of the room.
Yeah, you're not making it like a
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah, that's I have a very similar. Again, I would credit this to Kevin because I was, as previously stated,
carbon's a
neglectful. But I also
natural lube.
shooting a lot, and
That's
I
what
am
Bryce would
not
say.
known-
Carbon's a natural lube. Like,
It
carbon's fucking
can
filthy.
be.
Yeah, it can be.
Never
Okay.
mind the fact you had to like it. I did take the bolt carrier out of one of my guns, and it in the carbon had left like a cartoon outline of the bolt. It looked like fucking like the Roadrunner had gone.
I ran into the breach face.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my
Yeah.
god, that's terrible.
I mean, and that's you know that's okay. That's okay. ARs come
No, but it's worse. It wasn't suppressed. That was unsuppressed. That's how off. Like I just wouldn't.
I mean, an unsuppressed
Cases.
AR will go, and you know, I'm contradicting myself here a little bit. Like bear with me. Like an unsuppressed AR will go like a very long time without needing.
That's
like,
what
proper
happens.
cleaning.
Like if the gun's built well, it makes you complacent because it just keeps working.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, in my career, I've ran like demo guns where I've done like 3 cases of ammo in a weekend, and I didn't like you know I'm not cleaning it.
Yeah.
And like I didn't have lube, and like towards the end of that, right, it's starting to chug along, and that's a suppressed SBR with a carbine length gas system. So like quite literally one of the worst systems as far as accruing carbon fouling can go. And they'll run fine. Like ARs, they just like to be wet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like lube is imperative. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And like it's different for everybody. Like geographically, we're talking about rifles. You're like, oh yeah, the Pacific Northwest. How does that affect you know how you use your guns? And lube is very similar, right? Like how I lube a gun here, which is like functionally the rainforest, right? It's a cold rainforest. It's different than how someone in Arizona or like Anchorage, Alaska is going to do.
Swamp Pass, Florida.
Or where we live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So run your stuff, and then like the other caveat I'll put on that is like every firearm is different. Like you're not going to treat a Glock slide the same way you're going to treat an AR-15 BCG because they were all designed to run a certain way.
I will say I rusted my ascetic ass sweat did rust through and severely pit my Glock 34 slide when they had like the good finish. This was pre-change.
Pre-DLC.
Yeah. So it is a perfect just I have special sweat. It's great. I love it.
He's like an alien.
Yeah, so like,
I feel like a xenomorph.
Well, I mean, like the humidity is like, and I again, it's cold here. I get that it's like a lot colder than Florida, but it's very humid and wet. And like, you know, I think it was Ben Franklin. You know, guns have 2 enemies: rust and politicians. That's a real thing.
Amen,
you know, I do envy. I love the ocean. I love the mountains. But at some point, I do kind of envy the dude in Arizona, where it's like, oh yeah, it's just like the humidity is 0.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely nothing. Although I will say, Kevin knows this. If you've ever, I guess I don't know if this ages me, but if you know who the Diary of the Wimpy Kid is, like in terms of like him being like allergic to like the world and everything. So imagine that, except for like nosebleeds. That's me. And so that's my only problem. I love dry weather, but it's just like the hemorrhaging would be insane.
Dude, I'm the same way, man. I'm a salamander. Like there was a period of time where I had to travel to like the Southwest a lot, and so I was in like Arizona, Texas, Nevada, because the firearms industry does a lot of stuff in those places.
Right.
And like there was about a 6-month span there where
I've heard there's some in Utah.
Yeah, getting like horrible nosebleeds because I'm used to Washington where it's like wet all the time, except for like 2 months out of the year. And not good. I do enjoy the Pacific Northwest climate very much.
All right. Well,
yes.
So we talked about dry fire real quick. We've done this a couple times with other guests. In terms of dry fire, what is your regiment and what do you carry?
Ooh, that's a good question. To tell you the truth, that's something I definitely need to tune up on and like refine more.
Okay.
A lot of it's just, especially when for a while there, I was carrying with a red dot, and that was kind of where I picked back up on it. For like a newer shooter, practicing good solid trigger presses is definitely a piece of it. And then like if you're making the transition to carrying with a red dot, for example, like that's something you absolutely need to practice draw stroke on and presentation. Because it's not as intuitive as like a 3-post sight system for people who've grown up shooting that way. I'm sure I could take someone new and they'd be like walking all over me with a red dot, right?
That's been my experience. Any of the family members I've taught, when I show them red or like iron sights, and we've been doing that for months on end, and then I have a gun with a red dot, it's like bing, bing, bing. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, that's cool.
So for me, a lot of it is just learning the trigger, being able to present and get a good crisp, like with haste, get a good crisp, full press, whatever semantics you want to use, on without like shifting the gun drastically, right?
Right.
That's something that'll be very valuable for people that are like trying to get over a flinch or anything of the like. Right now for carry piece, Bodyguard 2.0 actually.
Ooh, okay,
good choice.
It's on my short list.
Kind of a new one, but I've been it was definitely a glow up for the Bodyguard line.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was severely wanting. I mean, Smith & Wesson's really been doing some work lately. I mean, they've been really turning around. I would think. I mean, we talked briefly about some companies that had changed opinions. I have a way more positive opinion on Smith & Wesson lately, especially with what they're doing with their product lines. The Bodyguard 2.0 is just such a good step. I mean, it's a controllable, great, concealable size 380 with like super modern features. I mean, it's a massive win. Yep. Oh my goodness gracious! Yeah, 12 rounds, I think.
10, 12 or 10 flush fit, 12 with an extended. And
that's major.
It's the only like 380 in that class for the most part that does all that, and then like also simultaneously doesn't feel like it's trying to explode in your hand when you're trying to shoot.
Right. Absolutely. I carried. There was a deal for a little bit. I had, because a lot of the time I use concealed carry guns as like a project because I have to have something I'm doing mentally all day long. So I was carrying behind the hip for a while, and treating it that way, and then like I use like it's just like little experiments here and there. So that's how I treat handguns.
Yeah, and I mean like it's like for that one for me, it's just kind of harkens to a thing for most people. It's like carry as big of a gun as you can, but if you're not going to carry it because it's so big, then why do you have it? If you're buying it as a carry gun, right?
Well, Clint Smith is really famous for talking about like it's. I mean, we are talking about. I think he was talking about with like shotguns and stuff and handguns in the room. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, like you can grab a handgun and grab a shotgun, but which one would you rather be shooting somebody with?
Yeah, 100%. And that's a balancing act, and that gets into like a whole that could be a whole podcast in of itself for you guys. So I'll save that for someone who's more on the training side of things. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of broached that subject, and I mean both of us have discussed training. What are you just kind of real quick? What are you looking for in a trainer? And are you looking for? I mean, you discussed maybe doing some PRS stuff. Are you looking for any training this year?
Right now for like my personal doctrine, I'm getting into the night vision world. So that's
nice. Okay.
That's going to be a lot of what I'm going to be focusing on from like a formal training perspective. As far as what people at home should look for a good accredited school, and like don't, it's okay to have schools you like, that's fine, but don't get married to one school. It's good to go. And like the instructors do this, they will go to other schools and train with them with
the good ones do that though.
Right. Yeah. Because again, you're always learning, right? So just have that growth mindset and understand that the like different places are going to offer different things, and they're going to teach you differently, and you can pick up on stuff from different folks.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to roll into the next part of our deal. We're going to talk about things that we have new. I'm trying to stick to some like regular format, so stick with me, listeners.
What's the new format?
Well, it's the old format that I tried to do, but then I haven't done like for 2 episodes in a row. So it was like the news.
Oh,
just pretend like this is a professional thing, man.
Okay.
So we're going to do like a round table, like new guns we've heard about, stuff we're excited about, shows we're watching, just something fun. And then after that, we'll talk about guns that we're building, and then we'll plug our shit, and then we'll go to bed because it's late and I'm old and tired.
Bryce is old and tired.
And I have a child, which I love very much, but he is many, many hours of work. Okay, so Kirk, has there been any new exciting things that have caught your eye? Other than, I mean, we talked about the bodyguard, unless you want to talk about that more, because those are cool.
I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory. Go try one. You have a rental range locally.
Go try one, yeah.
Yeah, for me, delving into the night vision stuff more formally has been kind of the exciting thing. That was a bridge I had kind of been on the edge of for a very long time, and given recent life events, kind of pushed me a little bit, and I'm really excited to get into that world.
That's super cool.
Yeah, from an actual rifle perspective, that opens up a lot of things, and it kind of makes me have to rethink my setups across the board too. Because when you're like incorporating that into your, we keep saying doctrine, but incorporating that into your doctrine, it's kind of a newer world for me. I've been in it. I've used it before, but it's kind of taken a more professional approach to it, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, I think I don't watch a ton of gun entertainment, but the gun YouTube channels that I do watch are like Hop and Boondock Ballistician and Brass Facts and stuff like that. And I think pretty much anybody that's ever really talked about night vision is like, it's a terrible thing to get into because all of your guns get worse. Everything gets heavier, but oh my God, is it cool and fun?
Well, yeah, and it's so intimidating too. Like,
yeah.
I was a little nervous getting into it too. Like, I'm like, there's a lot of questions and stuff, and that's exciting to me. But
yeah,
but like
you don't want to try to figure out what the fuck FOM is?
Yeah, well, because it's a huge investment for a lot of people, right?
Massive. And then to go in blind.
Yeah, I wish I was in a situation where I didn't have to think about it too much, but
yeah,
proudly middle class. You guys still gotta it's a lot of coin to shell out on a setup.
No kidding.
Yeah, it is.
Well, are you gonna be doing any of the competition stuff with that? Because I know the competition's a really fun way to make things less terrible.
Yeah, so a group of my buddies, and I think Hop shoots this match too. Moon's out, Goon's out.
Yeah, I was gonna see if you had expressed interest in that.
I am interested in attending this coming year. I know I just missed it, but I'm still kind of getting my stuff figured out. So
that's super cool.
Yeah, it's exciting.
That'll be awesome.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess Kevin, you're up.
I don't know. I built a Glock recently.
Did we? I don't remember. I don't want to make you talk about something again.
I think we already talked about my.
We may have already talked about
my Cobblepot Glock.
Yeah, I think we were gonna. I think we were supposed to have watched SAS Rogue Warriors by now. I think that's what we were supposed to talk about.
Eventually, yeah.
Okay, well, eventually we're going to talk about a TV show and then do a terrible job reviewing it. So
terrible.
You have that to look forward to. And I am building ARs, but I mean, I think I just kind of do that. I have I think Hop actually made that video where it was like restless AR syndrome, and I was like, oh no.
You have slowly progressed into building more and more ARs.
Well, it's not necessarily more ARs. I did buy more lowers, but more that I keep ripping things apart, and then I'm like, it'd be really interesting.
He's
that's what I was kind of talking about earlier.
With his ARs.
Yeah, I do that. Oh, the dogs. Yes, they made an appearance. That's awesome. Yes. That's sick. All right, cool. Well, that works out. So, Kirk, where can the people find you, even though they probably found us from you? Either way.
I'm not that big. I'm flattered, but I'm not that big.
Yeah, but you're more likable than we are. We're more nasally.
That is true.
My dog's trying to speak for me here. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. That's good. No.
Here, buddy.
Good. Solid job here.
Okay, now he's my presence. He's mellowed out. So the easiest way to find me, what I'm doing, all that kind of stuff, hi.kirk.here on Instagram. That's my public facing social place. I'm also, I lurk on Reddit, so you might see me float up there sometimes.
Okay, and then the Discord too, or?
Oh yeah, I got a Discord if you want to come. It's a
pretty fun time.
And
yeah,
it
I mean
was,
the majority of it's
hilarious.
snack posting, so just talking about food, but like there's some gun stuff in there too if you're into that. I don't know if you guys like want to plug that in the description of this or whatever, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
a good place to be.
Yeah, no, it's a hoot. I like going through there. So, well, we really appreciate having you on, and we're definitely love to have you on again. And then definitely be looking out for that article. Do you have an idea where that's going to be, or you just kind of come out when you figure it out?
It'll come out when I figure it out.
All right, totally
I'll
cool, totally cool,
post-
totally get that. So, all right, well, let me thank you again, and let me roll the outro.
adios.
Why I said it like that? That was weird.
Roll the
What the
outro,
fuck?
outro.
Yeah, that was like a real life Matrix glitch. All right, thanks for listening, guys.
See ya.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Very cool. You should like and subscribe.
On Facebook and Instagram.
And Twitter and Spotify. You should listen there too. If you
Aren't they
heard this on
listening to
Spotify.
this on Spotify right now?
Well, they could be, but there's also YouTube podcasts, so all of the places.
We always forget where we post this stuff.
We don't know where this is. Thank you for listening wherever you're listening to, but you should also like the other places that we are. And
Who are we and what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know how we got here. So thank you for letting us talk directly into your ear holes.
Ah, right to the brain.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Adios.